I challenge you to a duel.
Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Movie Duel podcast. My name is Peter and I am your host. Each episode of the Movie Duel podcast we select a subject that's based around movies, and then myself and my co-host each select a film that we feel best fits that subject. Only rule is that we can't pick the same movie more than once. This week we're joined once again by the fantastic Vanessa Cordner, and we'll be discussing our selections for Best Public Transport Action Movie. But before we get into that, just some reminders about how you can get into contact with us here at Movie Duel Podcast. First of all, there's our Facebook page. If you can like and follow that, it would be fantastic. You're more than welcome to leave us a little rating and review on there as well. And you're also able to send us a message through that as well, should you wish to get in contact with us. You can email us at movieduelpodcast@gmail.com. And we are now also on Twitter as well. You can follow us at movieduelpod. It's fairly virgin territory for myself on Twitter. I've not really spent much time on there, but it'd be nice to get some followers on there and start to connect with some people through that. Plus, we'll likely be adding the polls on there. It's a lot easier to do that on Twitter than it is most of the platforms. So look out for those. It'd be interesting to see whether you agree with myself or with Vanessa on this episode. And as always, if you can leave us a little rating and review on whichever podcast platform you listen to us on, then that really helps us to gain new listeners. And a big thanks, big shout out to anybody who has left us a rating or review at this time. It's been nice to get some good feedback and some good suggestions for the future as well. So without further ado, let's head on over to the main discussion.
I feel the need for speed. Ow!
So welcome back to the podcast, Vanessa.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. It's really sunny here, which is nice in central Scotland. We don't see the sun very often, so it's quite exciting.
What's that in the sky?
Yeah, it's still quite cold to be honest, but it's nice. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. The sun's shining down here as well.
Good stuff.
It's nice not to have to wear a coat, which is always good.
Yes, definitely.
So, what have you been up to? Have you seen anything new recently?
I've seen a couple of things at the cinema. I think since we last spoke, I saw Peril, which I thought was fantastic. Absolutely loved it. I thought it was even better than X, which I really liked as well. I just loved the Technicolor kind of Wizard of Oz type stuff, and it was fucking deranged, and I'm really pleased I saw it in the cinema as well, actually. What else have I seen in the cinema? I saw Infinity Pool. I saw Infinity Pool last week, which I enjoy. I didn't enjoy it as much as Peril. I think it went on a little bit too long, but
Definitely.
I still enjoyed it, and I still think Mia Goth is pretty awesome. I cannot believe that she is with Shia LaBeouf, though. That is outrageous. Even I read that, I was like outraged that she would be with some. I don't know why, because he might be a nice guy, but he seems like a dick. So yeah, I've watched a lot of stuff just at home. I watched The Wicker Man 2006 on Sunday when I was feeling unwell, and it did not make me feel any better. But yeah. Oh, and I've been watching the Evil Dead films, because obviously I'm going to see Evil Dead Rise next Thursday. So
Cool.
So yeah. How about you?
I've not watched too much really. I've had quite a busy few weeks. I took my daughter on a date night in the middle of last week to go and see the new Super Mario Bros., which was really, really good. Really enjoyed it.
Good.
Hell of a lot better than the 1992 offering. Really fun, a lot of sort of callbacks to the old games and things like that, and yeah, really good, really nice and short as well. Kids' film. It doesn't, I think it's an hour and a half, something like that. But it was really fun. My daughter really enjoyed it. She was applauding at the end.
Oh, was she? That's good. Does she know the kids still play Super Mario? Is that still a thing?
Yeah, oh god, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. She had a bit of money, I think she got for Easter, so I think the following day she went and bought Mario Kart for a Switch as well.
Oh, Switch. Is that the Nintendo one?
Yes.
Right,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, I'm really not up to date. See, because I don't have kids, I really struggle with what the young people are doing. But
Well, she was really surprised how good I was, and I'm old school at this. Super Mario Kart on the SNES.
On the
and
SNES,
I've played
that's
every
right.
iteration since it's come out.
Oh wow! Oh, good.
It's old school.
I'm glad it was good.
Really.
I think it's been quite successful. I think it's been quite a box office success.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, maybe I don't think Super Mario's sort of thrown down people's faces like it was in the 90s. So I think it is a bit of a surprise that it's still going and it's still popular.
Yeah, definitely.
So obviously after our last discussion on Paul Verhoeven movies, invited you back to have another discussion. And this time, I let you choose the subject. So, pop quiz, hot shot. You're asked to guest on a movie podcast, and you're asked to pick a subject. What do you choose? What do you choose?
I chose action movies set on public transport. There's probably a better way of saying that.
Best public transport action movie?
Yeah. And if you have to include planes as public transport for it to work. So anything set on, like a plane, I suppose a ship, a train, or a bus would count.
Okay, cool. Was it an easy choice for you?
Fairly. Yeah, Speed was the first thing that popped out of my head. I love Speed. I've watched it multiple times. But to be fair, when I was thinking about it, there's quite a few good, especially like plane-based action movies, kind of like mid-90s stuff, like Passenger 57, Con Air.
I said, put the bunny back in the box.
Snakes on a Plane, some train stuff, The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, and something else popped into my head there and it just fell straight back out. But yeah, I think there's quite a few. Oh, The Commuter, that was it. It's set on a train. It's what's his name, Liam Neeson. And do you know what I watched recently actually that probably could fit into this category? Red Eye. The Wes Craven film. I got a Paramount subscription recently because Yellow Jackets is the second season's out on Paramount, so I've been trying to watch as many things on Paramount because it's only like 10 episodes long, so as soon as that's over I'll probably get rid of the subscription. And I thought I was getting ready to go somewhere, and I was like, I had like an hour and a half to kill, and I was like, oh, I'll stick on Red Eye, and I was actually quite pleasantly surprised. It was all right for what it is. I thought it was all right. So, and there's another one. There's a Jodie Foster one as well. Is it Flight Plan?
Flight Plan, yeah.
I don't know about you, but I really enjoy movies set in like a single location. So anything where people are stuck on one like form of transport. I like things like 12 Angry Men, things that are set in like a room or a hotel or that kind of thing. I think it just ups the stakes a little bit where people can't really go anywhere. So this is definitely a category that I probably could have picked other things for, but Speed I think is probably the best. And if you're talking about action, I think it's the most action-packed, tense. Well, it's not tense now because I've seen it like 50 times, but like when you first see it, it's like quite a tense movie. So how about you? What how did you pick your movie?
Yeah, well, there wasn't too many I considered. My choice pretty much came to me straight away. But I considered things that you've mentioned there: Con Air, Snakes on a Plane. I don't think it's the best, but it'd be a fun one to talk about. Die Hard 2 is sort of.
Yeah.
But then you could also consider Die Hard with a Vengeance, I suppose, as well, because there's a lot of there's taxes in that, so that's probably a little bit of a stretch. But no, I was firm in my decision. The first thing that's popped into my head, which was Executive Decision from 1996.
A shipment of the nerve toxin DZ5 was hijacked.
Are you saying nerve gas is on board? On March 15th,
Yes, sir. Have
6 men
Keep it going.
have only 3 hours to disarm a bomb.
What if you don't cut that wire?
You can forget Washington.
Got a nerve agent here to wipe out half the eastern seaboard.
There's only one catch. We have to board a plane 5 miles above the Earth.
No word from Travis. Order the F-14s to intercept the 747.
The Pentagon is gonna shoot us down.
What are you doing up here? Who else is gonna do it? You? You have your orders. We're locked on target. Execute them. They're getting ready to light us up.
Stop the attack. Warner Brothers presents
Do it.
Everybody down.
Kurt Russell and Steven Seagal.
We're not gonna make it. You are.
Executive Decision. Rated R. Starts Friday, March 15th at a theater near you.
Directed by Stuart Baird, starring Kurt Russell, Halle Berry, John Leguizamo, Oliver Platt, David Suchet, and Steven Seagal. The synopsis for Executive Decision is when terrorists seize control of an airliner, an intelligence analyst accompanies a commando unit for a mid-air boarding operation. So I first saw this probably not long after it came out. It would probably be about a year and a half after it came out. It popped up on Sky Box Office. I can't remember. Don't know if you remember that. Early sort of paying for films.
Yeah, I mean, you still do
Before they
pay,
went on.
you still have, Sky Store and stuff, but
Yeah,
I do. We never had Sky. I have Sky now as an adult, but as a child, my parents were never really into Sky, so the only time I ever got to watch Sky, I used to babysit a lot. The street we lived in, there was a lot of younger kids, so when I was about 14 or whatever, I used to babysit for, I don't know, a tenner or whatever, and that used to be the highlight, being able to watch people's Sky. So yeah, I remember Sky Box Office.
Well, the beauty of Sky Box Office is you could record off it, so I used to buy things and record them. Things like Anaconda and Scream and
Good
this
stuff.
was one of them, The Relic, loads of films like that, so I used to just watch them again and again. I was a big fan of Kurt Russell. One of my favourite films is Big Trouble in Little China. Seen him in loads of stuff: Tombstone, Overboard, Captain Ron, Escape from New York. I think I'd seen by that point as well. So I knew there were a lot of Kurt Russell films that I enjoyed. So it was a big sort of selling point for me to watch this film. And it's planes and it's action. So 14-year-old me just really ate it up. Loved it.
Have you seen The Chronicles of Christmas that he's been in not that long ago? I really, really enjoyed the second one. I didn't think was that great, but the first one really I've watched every Christmas for the last 3 years. I think it's quite touching. It's quite emotional.
Do you watch that before or after you watch Basic Instinct?
Don't watch Basic Instinct that close to Christmas.
Oh, right.
No, but A Christmas Chronicles is actually becoming a yearly Christmas watch. I think it's brilliant. Kurt Russell's amazing in it. He's really good.
It is, I don't think I can't think of anything I've seen Kurt Russell in that he's bad in. He's been in some bad films or films that aren't so great, but I can't think of a performance that you could really knock for Kurt Russell. I think he's very versatile.
Yeah, he's very versatile, and he's kind of classic Hollywood handsome action. But he doesn't just do it. I mean, I suppose in this film, he wasn't your just classic action guy. He was in the intelligence service. He wore glasses, which in the 90s meant you were clever. If you wore glasses in movies, that was just a sign that you were smart.
Well, that's it.
He was scared of going on the plane, and you know what I mean. He wasn't just out and out Steven Seagal kind of character.
That's it. You look at it, you look at his filmography. He's very versatile. He can play the action hero. He can do a Snake Plissken in Escape from New York, Escape from LA, and he can do the sort of bumbling action hero in Big Trouble in Little China, and he can play these kind of characters. That aren't or sort of unlikely heroes. You know, it's like a bit like Breakdown. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I haven't.
You know, where his wife goes missing. Very good film, really good film. But you know, he's just an everyman who, you know, rich guy out in, you know, rural America, and his wife gets kidnapped basically, and he's, you know, he's not a heroic character, but he's got to sort of step up to save his wife, kind of thing.
Yep.
So you know, he can turn his hand to most things really.
And he's in The Thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he's
yeah,
fantastic in The Thing.
He can play a loner as well.
Yeah, he's no, I've got a lot of time for Kurt Russell. Really like him. Really like Overboard actually, although it is really problematic and has tons of issues when you look at it now. But he, like you said, he's really versatile because he's quite funny in Overboard. I suppose Overboard, it probably helps that he's acting with Goldie Hawn. They were already together, I think, at that point, so they've obviously got quite good chemistry. But no, I think Kurt Russell's great, and it just shows you with like things like the Chronicles of Christmas that he's still got it even now.
Definitely. So Stuart Baird.
Yep.
Stuart Baird.
Baird.
Scouser now. Stuart Baird's directing debut. His primary experience was as an editor. Lots of action films: Lethal Weapon, Die Hard 2, Demolition Man, Casino Royale. But he also did films like The Omen, Tommy, Superman.
Oh,
so
wow, right,
very,
okay.
You know, another versatile gentleman, putting his hand to lots of different kind of films. But you definitely knows his action. He only directed 3 films. U.S. Marshals, which was the sort of sequel to The Fugitive, which is okay, not brilliant, but...
Oh, right, okay.
And Star Trek Nemesis, which again is okay, but not brilliant. But you know, an editor, you can always bank on a good editor to make a well-made film.
Yeah.
You know, I discussed with Liam, Return to Oz, which was...
Return to Oz is brilliant.
Yeah, and that was you know, a guy who was his craft was editing. It was the only film he sort of directed, and yeah, that was, you can tell that it was made by a good editor. It was written by Jim and John Thomas, who are brothers. Worked on screenplays for nearly all of the Predator franchise as well, whether it's
right.
the whole script or just working on the script and stuff. So again, you know, you've got some guys who are well versed in action. The practical effects as well in this film, I thought, were really good for the time. In 1996, I couldn't spot any CGI. I think it was all miniature work or, you know, optical effects, practical effects. You can slightly tell that the plane towards the end is a miniature, but really well done, really well made. You know, a really suitable score from Jerry Goldsmith as well, who's always a safe pair of hands when it comes to.
He
film scoring, really.
did Basic Instinct, didn't he?
Yes, he's done loads, Alien, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. No, I thought the score was good.
But obviously, something to talk about the sort of before we get into the grittiness of the plot and everything. Obviously, this film was pre 9/11.
Yeah, I wrote that down when I was watching it actually.
And it wasn't shown for a long time after, obviously, the events
was
in
it?
New York.
Right.
And then when it sort of came back, it was quite edited. They'd taken out a lot of the references to sort of Islam, Allah, and all that sort of stuff, really. But you know, as far as I could tell, the version I watched, which was I think the same as you through purchasing online, was uncut. I can't think that there were any changes.
The version I watched, they definitely were Islamic kind of fundamentalists.
I picked up a little bit more on this watch, maybe a bit less than before. I mean, I think this is only I would say probably only the second time I've watched it since 9/11. I watched it a lot pre 9/11, but obviously, you know, it's very easy to make that sort of connection to Islamic fundamentalists, I suppose is the right phrase. But really, you know, it's almost like a bit of a Die Hard situation. They're being sort of played by Naji Hassan, who's played by David Suchet. You know, most of the guys, most of the terrorists, quote unquote, are there because they're trying to get Jaffa the sort of leader, the guy that gets arrested at the start of the film. They think they're doing this to get him freed, but obviously Hassan's mission is to blow this plane up across American soil. There's obviously a point in the film where one of his men sort of challenge him once Jaffa's been released.
Najee, now that Abiyafa is free, shall I order the plane to change course back to Algeria?
No.
But why?
We are the true soldiers of Islam. Our destiny is to deliver the vengeance of Allah into the belly of the infidel.
This has nothing to do with Islam. This is not Allah's will. You are blinded by your hatred, and I will have nothing to do with your plan. Our mission was to free Abu Yafa. He is our leader, not you.
Which I thought was really interesting, actually. It's easy. It would have been easier to just do, these Islamic sort of radicals that are doing it to hurt as many people as possible, like the 9/11 attacks. But it is just this sort of one guy who's using them for his own ends, really. Yeah. But David Suchet, what a performance!
He's brilliant. I mean,
obviously here in the UK, we're very familiar with David Suchet as fucking hell. I'll take a minute here because I'm going to really mispronounce this. We're really familiar with him as Hercule Poirot in the TV series, as this sort of kindly gentleman detective from France.
He's Belgian.
He just...
That's quite funny though, because I'm a big Poirot fan, and that's like the running joke that people think he's French, and he's actually Belgian.
Yes, I shall slap myself on the. And I mean, he's not David Suchet. He's not Arabic. He's Lithuanian. His father was Lithuanian Jewish. So there is a little bit of, I don't know whether you call it cultural appropriation or whatever, but definitely pulls off the sinister, untrustworthy, sort of radical. There were genuine moments, especially his interactions with Halle Berry's character, that you just on the edge of your seat and just really tense, really, really believable, and you sort of seriously fear for Halle Berry in those moments.
Sorry about the phone ring.
Oh, Jesus. Get on with it.
But yeah, sort of nipping back to Kurt Russell, the character of David Grant is obviously this analyst who specialises in finding out information about terrorism, terror attacks and things like that. And first couple of scenes we see that he's training to be a pilot as well. Kurt Russell is actually a pilot in real life.
Right.
He's qualified and everything. And then his second scene, we see that he gets cock-blocked by the American government, trying to entice somebody to the hockey, which obviously comes full circle towards the end, when he asks Halle Berry's character if she likes hockey, and she says, no, I'm a baseball girl, and she was actually married to a famous baseball player at the time.
All right, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's pretty flawless, I think, Kurt Russell. I don't think there's anything in this film you can say he's phoning anything in. He conveys his fear really well. He's not hamming it up. It's just really good, solid performance from Kurt Russell.
They're all solid performances, actually.
Yeah, I think so.
I'd never seen
Aside
this.
from one.
I'd never seen this film before, and I just watched it for the first time last night, and when you said that David Suchet was in it, I kind of thought, is he going to kind of ham it up a little bit as the baddie, because I'm used to him with this like waxed moustache in Poirot, and he didn't. You know, because some baddies can a wee bit like what's his name in Die Hard?
Rickman.
Yes, Alan Rickman. You know, who are obviously hamming it up. He's not like that. He plays it really straight, and he is actually quite, like you said, that the bits with him and Halle Berry, he's actually quite frightening. Which I didn't expect. I thought it would be more on the kind of hammy camp, playing it for laughs, and I didn't get that from it at all. He was actually really quite scary, and the other terrorists you really don't get to know very well. They're basically just like kind of hired muscle, and none of them really have any agency. He's the only one that you really get to know anything about. But no, I was kind of pleasantly surprised by how kind of dark his character was.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, the opposite to that, Steven Seagal, who plays Austin Travis, which is a proper action movie name.
Yep.
Austin Travis, you know, he means business. But you know, he was rumoured to be very demanding on the film, not very nice to work with. Actually, taekwondoed John Leguizamo into a wall.
All right.
To assert his dominance.
What did Steven Seagal do to you?
We were in rehearsals for Executive Decision, okay? I'm playing his master sergeant, and we come in for rehearsals, and he comes in, I'm in command. What I say is law. Anybody doesn't agree? And I was like, I started cracking up because he sounded like a retard, and he came up, and he taekwondoed my ass against the brick wall. Went, he's 6'5" and caught me off guard, knocked all the air at me. I was like, why? What I really wanted to say is how big and fat he is, how he runs like a girl, because he does. But I didn't.
Sounds like a bit of a dick.
Yes, well, there's a lot of not very nice stories about Steven Seagal going about in this. So,
thankfully, he's not in it that long.
No, which is great. It's amazing. I love that. He was supposed to actually lose his head, but he threw a paddy basically and said that my fans wouldn't want to see that, so he just gets thrown out of this sleeve that's attaching the two planes in the end. But yeah, like I said, I'm not a fan of his, so I didn't really care. I thought it was really nice to see him sort of go. And I much prefer the rest of the Marines. I think there's a really good, some really good casting choices here. John Leguizamo, he near enough steals the show. I think he's really good in this as Rat.
He's a great actor. I first came across him in Romeo and Juliet, you know, the 1990, I think it was the same year actually, 96, Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. And I think he's just one of the guys, he's got like a really expressive face. I saw him recently in The Menu. Did you see The Menu?
Yes.
And I thought he was brilliant in that. John Wick, he's obviously been in not that long ago. Kick-Ass 2, which wasn't a particularly good film, but I thought he was... But he's quite a dependable actor, I think, and he's just...
He's good in... Have you seen the Summer of Sam, Spike Lee film?
No, I haven't.
About the Son of Sam killer.
Oh, yeah,
good.
Yeah.
I think it's on Disney Plus at the moment, I think.
I'll check it
out. It's sort of set in a neighbourhood around that time, and there's this sort of paranoia about the Son of Sam killer, basically. But he's one of the sort of residents. Really good film, worth a look. Early performance from Adrian Brody as well.
Oh, right, okay.
But yeah, he gets all the good lines here, which apparently he ad-libbed most of them.
I hope there's a good movie on this flight.
But he fits the role really well. Has to step up once Steven Seagal's character has gone. Apparently, Seagal's character was supposed to stay the course of the film originally, but because he pissed everybody off, they killed him off early and gave all of the rest of his role went to John Leguizamo's character. But as I say, he apparently improvised a lot of his lines. Kurt Russell didn't like that. He didn't like working with somebody who improvised his own lines. And apparently the line where Kurt Russell's jimmying himself across the wire, takes his shoes off, he says, "I hope the smell doesn't give us away." Apparently that pissed Kurt Russell off to a point that he lashed out at John Leguizamo.
Oh, right, all right.
But it's an amazing line, great line. He gets all the good ones. Although he does spend the last half of the film talking out the side of his mouth as well. So I can't, that can't be nice.
No, not at all. I thought
it
was...
always reminds me of my dad always used to say, I don't know if you used to watch Emmerdale back in the day, but there's a character, Marlon Dingle, who sort of talked really like the side of his mouth, and my dad always used to be like, that guy at the end of the day must just be, his face must just completely ache. But we've got a really good supporting cast from there on. Oliver Platt as Cahill, who's the sort of expert on these planes connected up. He's a believable coward. He sweats so much.
They all sweat, and none of them drink any. I'd written a note about this. They never drink any water, and it looks like they're in, like, where they are in the plane, and they're tense, and they're nervous. But I get the impression the bit in the plane is kind of like really claustrophobic and sweaty. And I just kept thinking, surely you would have brought in, with all those guns and stuff, like a couple of bottles of water, like that you would be able to hydrate yourself. I also thought it was bizarre, you mentioned about Kurt Russell taking his shoes off, and he's got these like dress shoes on. He's wearing like basically like a suit. So I don't know if that's where that kind of 007 line came from.
This 007?
But see, if you were actually going on a mission like that, you would wear like comfy clothes. You would have on like trainers, like comfy, like a t-shirt. Like you wouldn't go on a mission like that wearing a suit, I don't think.
Yeah, that's the point. He was at the party there once. He was at some kind of dinner party and got called to this meeting with the generals, and then he's got to go there straight to the plane. Basically, he's obviously not. The intention isn't that he's going to end up on the plane or anything like that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's it's all sort of circumstance really. But Oliver Platt's character Cahill, he sort of gets this really amazing relationship with Joe Morton's character Cappy.
Yeah.
Which Cappy has quite a brutal scene really, where he breaks his neck on the sort of hatch into the planes, and I mean, fair fucks to him. He acts the rest of the movie gaffer tape to a board basically. He's got this little mirror so he can see what's going on, but that can't be comfortable even just acting it. And it really made me laugh at the end where they're putting him into the back of the ambulance, I think it is, the medics, and one of the other soldiers sort of says, "Oh, just wait a minute," because they all want to stop and wave at Kurt Russell, and these guys are just literally holding him in midair between the floor and the back of the truck, and it's like, yeah, we'll just sort of stand here holding you up while you smile and wave at Kurt Russell. But that the whole sort of bomb diffusing scenes in this film are really, really tense.
Yeah.
They're not. It's not like that's it. You're done. Just cut a few wires. They go back and forth through the different decoys. It's very sort of stop-start, and then obviously the plastic straw that's the MVP of the whole film saves the day completely. It just reminded me of The Simpsons, where
Homer Simpson was the real hero here. He jury-rigged the door closed using this.
Hey, what is that? It's an inanimate carbon rod!
If you watch The Simpsons,
I've seen The Simpsons, but not for a while, so I can't totally get the reference. But I did think that plastic straw was going to come into it because it is mentioned. It's like what do you call it? Like Chekhov's straw.
Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, it's a bit like that. But he's really good in it. Actually, I don't know Oliver Platt that much as an actor. I suppose the film I recognise him from the most is A Time to Kill.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he is really believable in this, and as you say, he just looks scared, he's sweaty, he's obviously a wee bit out of his depth, he's having to take instruction from Cappy, who, as you say, is laid out. I thought it's quite funny because we're obviously going to go on to speak about Speed, and obviously Joe Morton is obviously all in Speed as well as this film, but there are parallels around the diffusing. I mean, it's done quite differently in Speed, but you've still got this kind of tense trying to diffuse a bomb from like an awkward angle, because obviously in Speed Keanu Reeves is like lying under the bus on his back. In this movie you've got, even though it's Oliver Platt's character that's diffusing it, you've got Joe Morton's character laid out on his back looking at him. There's those bits are quite similar. I thought it was interesting watching them quite close together because there are quite a few similarities, even though they're quite different movies.
Definitely. Then you've got a couple of sort of supporting Marines, I suppose. B.D. Wong as Louis, who's got the most Marine haircut I've ever seen.
I wrote that. It's like Lego. I thought it was like a Lego person. It's like straight and then straight. His hair is unbelievable.
Well, there was I can't remember if there were a music group or there were some kind of TV duo, like early 90s, called Kid and Play. And one of them had this very sort of square haircut, and that it just reminded me of that. And then you've got the fantastically named Whip Hubley, who plays Baker. Recognised he's Hollywood in Top Gun.
Oh, right.
He's one of the pilots in Top Gun. And then Halle Berry. This woman can do scared. She can do emotion like nobody's business, especially in this film. She's sort of equally sort of plucky and terrified at the same time. It's quite an early role for her. This was just before she became really big, I suppose. Sort of Swordfish was about 98, 99, I think. Obviously Monsters Ball a couple of years after that. But she's really good in this, I thought. It was the first $1 million role.
Yes, yeah, I read that.
And she's sort of there to convey the passenger's fear. Really, she's that sort of conscience of the plane, of the passengers, which she does really well. Obviously, she sort of gets involved in the action a little bit. She's got to look for the sleeper, this sort of trigger man.
Yeah.
Who in the end is a bit like when they finally sort of find him, and there's this big reveal of who he is. There's this he's sort of lit really oddly, because obviously you're meant to be drawn to him, and he's almost like a character in a video game that's got a secret mission for you or something like that. He's sort of lit really strangely with a very, very 90s PDA to trigger the bomb as well. This sort of flip up thing with a little keyboard on. I was really sad I had something like that.
Oh, did you?
Around that time, yeah. A little diary and number, contact numbers and things like that before mobile phones. And it did make me laugh actually, but there's a bit where when she's looking for the trigger man, I think the guy that she thinks it is, he's sat next to the woman who drops her tablets in the little pot, and she picks them up, and he's like, "What are you doing?" This terrorist comes on, he's like, "What? Come on, what are you doing? What are you doing?" And she says, "Oh, just picking up her tablets," and he picks them up, gives them a little shake. Like, you've got to do that with pills. You've just got to do it, haven't you? To pick up a pack of pills, you've got to give them a shake. Even terrorists have to do that. And then you've got JT Walsh, who plays Senator Mavros.
Oh, yeah.
It's just so strange him not playing some kind of evil bastard, because I've never seen him not. I mean, he's not, he's obviously a bit of a, he's a pure sort of politician, he considers when his aide sort of says, "Oh, we can use this to our advantage if you save this plane," kind of thing. So he's not totally sort of, sinless.
No.
But, he's the sort of sacrificial lamb of the film, I suppose. And it really raises the stakes in that last third as well, because obviously, he's sort of there to say, "Look, we mean business and we're not going to piss about, and bang, you're dead."
But yeah, like you said, he's not an out-and-out baddie, but he's obviously just out for himself, looking about how he can make the best out of this situation for himself. So yeah, not a great loss when he goes.
But then you've got Mary Ellen Trainor, who was one of the stewardesses, the one who gets sort of killed pretty early on, who's sort of a mini legend in sort of action films. She was in all 4 of the Lethal Weapon films. She was the sort of psychologist, I think, on the Force. She was in Die Hard, Monster Squad, Action Jackson. She was in all sorts of films. So it was nice to sort of see her in a little role here. And then be remiss to mention as well, the Lost connections in this.
Yay! I've written that down. Oceanic, that's the big one. Well, there's more than one actually, but do you know what I did last night when I was watching this? I had convinced myself that Oceanic was a real airline that had gone bust. Like, so you know how like Pan Am went bust after Lockerbie, I think it was, because they had to pay so much money out in compensation. I had made up a story in my head that Oceanic was a real airline, and they went bust because something must have happened, and now they're
Was it when flight 815 crashed?
Yes. And then to pay all those compensation to all those people, they ended up on that island. And I googled it, and of course it came up. No, it's just used in. I think it's used here. It's used in Lost, but apparently it's used. There's other things that it's used in as well. And so I was a bit depressed, not depressed, but I was a bit upset that it wasn't a real, because I think it's a really good name for an airline, like Oceanic. It just sounds cool. So, but yeah, Oceanic 815. This was Oceanic 343. That's what in this
343.
343. Yeah.
I mean, you get this one of the really brutal scenes sort of early on as well. You get the this sort of blowing up of an English restaurant, and we get another Lost connection here.
It's the psychic that Claire sees in Australia.
Yes. And they're not strangers, Claire. They're good people.
He's like the maitre d', isn't he, of the...
There's Jameson.
There's also somebody in that scene that I don't know. The guy that's actually the suicide bomber, did you recognise him? Because he's not credited, or I couldn't find him.
I recognised him from Crocodile Dundee 2.
That's where I recognised him from as well. But I was like, that's definitely that baddie with the long hair. I think his name's Miguel. He's like Rico's left-hand man in Crocodile Dundee. I love Crocodile Dundee, Crocodile Dundee 2, far more than anybody should. And yeah, but it took me a wee while to find it. Like, I was scrolling through IMDb, so I don't know if he's barely in it. He's only really in it for a matter of seconds, I think, before he blows himself up. But yeah, I thought the Lost connections were quite interesting, and then the guy from Crocodile Dundee. There's loads of people you recognise in this. Well, I was speaking to my mum today, actually, because I was telling her we were recording this, and she's not seen this movie, and I was saying, like, it's Kurt Russell and Halle Berry and David Suchet, but I was like, there's actually a ton of people that you would watch, and I know what my mum's like. She would be like, I know that person, I know that person, I know that person, because there's, like, the cast is one of those casts, isn't it, that you just would recognise a lot of the actors.
Yeah, and I mean there is as well. I was almost thinking of not mentioning this because I don't want it to become a recurring theme for when you're guesting on the Movie Duel podcast. But in that scene in the London restaurant as well, the hostess is played by Magdalene St Michael, who is a British porn star.
Oh, is she? Right.
Yes, and obviously we had Aisling Gear mentioned in our last episode in Basic Instinct, who was the body double, so I don't want it to become a recurring theme.
When you said there, I don't want it to become a recurring theme, I thought you were going to talk about wanking. I was like, where's Pete going with that?
No, I can say now, right now, I have not wanked over either of these films.
No, they're not very... Actually, it was funny, I was thinking about that, because I was thinking, God, that last one we spoke about, maybe not so much RoboCop, but definitely Basic Instinct. Yeah, talking about sex a lot. These two movies are fairly sexless, like, with the exception of a couple of wee bits, where obviously there's characters that are maybe got a wee bit of chemistry with each other or whatever. They're not sexy movies really at all in that sense, are they?
Definitely not.
They're sexy in the sense that they're like action packed and stuff, but they're not sex filled films. They're very I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but
I know what you mean. But I tell you what this film does have, and that is a shit ton of X-Files connections. An absolute ton. Loads and loads and loads, and I just kept looking. I'd found 3, and I thought I'm going to keep looking.
You did better than me, because when you were messaging me about it, I was like, oh, I think there's 1 or 2, and then you were like, there's like 6, and I was like, oh, I felt like I'd really let the side down.
So, first of all, we've got J.T. Walsh, who's Senator Mavros. He played the warden in The List of Season 3. B.D. Wong was also in Season 3 episode called Hell Money, which is not one of the best. Joe Morton, who will appear in your choice for this episode as well. He was Martin Wells in season 8's Red Rum.
Yep.
Which is one of the better ones of season 8.
It is actually. I've rewatched I've rewatched them all, but normally I skip season 8 and season 9, and I have rewatched them, and there are more better ones than I've probably given it credit for. They're just, to me, they're not as good as the earlier ones, but yeah, that one is actually pretty good.
One of the pilots in this film, played by Michael Mulholland, I think that's how you pronounce his name, but he was the sheriff's deputy in season 6, Terms of Endearment. Fantastic episode starring Bruce Campbell.
Love that episode. That scene where she's driving in the car at the end with garbage playing is just brilliant. And Bruce Campbell, that whole episode, I absolutely love that. Very kind of Rosemary's Baby, but like funnier than Rosemary's Baby.
And then a slightly less memorable one, Ken Jenkins, who plays General Wood. So he's one of the generals in the sort of boardroom. He was the transport chief in season 8's Medusa, which was one of the John Doggett episodes where he goes down into the subway and there's some kind of virus, I think, or something like that.
Oh, yeah. I vaguely remember that one, actually. Just thinking about it, the one that Joe Morton's in, Red Rum, him and John Doggett, his name has totally escaped me, Patrick, is it John? No. What's his name? Robert Patrick. And Joe Morton were obviously in Terminator 2 together as well. Because that's where I recognised Joe Morton from. I didn't instantly recognise him from the X-Files. I recognised him as the dude who is in charge.
Dyson.
Yeah, he's in charge of Skynet, isn't he? He's like the main man from Skynet. So that's how I recognised him. Good actor. I like him.
Yeah, he's had a few good roles, really, Joe Morton. But overall executive decision, I think it's a very tense, it's very clever action piece.
Yeah.
It's not all guns blazing. There's plenty of sort of guns and shooting and action, but it's not just what it's all about. It's very clever. It's almost sort of espionage-y. It's a little bit over the top, I suppose, in that the fact that how these Marines get on the plane and stuff, but the terror plot is not really over the top, especially post 9/11. It's very believable.
No, it's quite scary because you think about how you would react in that kind of, like, I always think the best kind of films like this are films where you actually do believe it could happen, and you think to yourself, like, how would I react if I was on a plane and that kind of thing happened? And when I was watching it, I did keep thinking back to, like, I mean, I would be a complete idiot. I'd be screaming. I'd like to think, I'd be really cool and I'd be able to help the, the good guys out. But I think in reality, I wouldn't. But I think the best movies like this are ones, and I think it's similar with Speed as well, actually, where you actually think, oh, how would I react if I was in this situation? But I think it's a really, I mean, like I said to you, I hadn't seen it before. I hadn't even heard of it. And then I watched it last night, and I definitely would watch it again. It's up my street. I think, as you say, it's believable. It's a good length. Like, obviously David Sushi's character's killed. Not a fair, but there's a fair bit after he dies to the end of the movie, and you do think, because I think there is a bit of an issue with. I'll come on to it when I speak about Speed, but I think Speed is actually a wee bit too long. I think, but I think in this movie, it's. Even once he dies, you think, well, how is it going to stay exciting? But then it's exciting because Kurt Russell's character, Dr. Grant, which kept making me think about Jurassic Park, he has to then land the plane. Although he's maybe had some lessons, he's by far a pilot. So yeah, I thought that was... Sorry, can you hear my dog barking? Right, okay. I think he might want out soon, so I might need to take a break soon. But yeah, I thought he was... I'm losing my train of thought. The end bit where he had to land it, I thought was really impressive as well, and it kept the stakes up. And then once he does land it, it doesn't go on; it just ends at that point. It's just
yeah.
Doesn't outstay.
I mean, it performed pretty well at the box office. Not fantastic. I mean, it doubled its budget. Reviews were pretty positive.
Yep.
I mean, I was quite surprised because I looked at this. Obviously, it comes up with other films that are similar on things like IMDb and that, and obviously one of them is Air Force One. And Air Force One is actually rated a fair bit higher, especially on Rotten Tomatoes. Another sort of 10% is rated fresh, but I think this is a much better film than Air Force One. I mean, it's very slightly sort of, yay America kind of film, this one, but not as much as Air Force One. So maybe it's just because I'm not American. I don't know. But I thought it was clever. It doesn't lose you at any point. The tension remains through the whole of the film near enough.
Yep.
Just really strong performances throughout. There's not really anything that you can touch up. Probably Steven Seagal's very much Steven Seagal, but other than that, I just think it's a great film. It's something I go back to quite a lot.
Yeah, I loved it. I would go back to it again. I thought it was really tight. I thought all the performances were good, like you said. Steven Seagal is one of these guys that I know of, but I have not seen many movies that he's in, and I didn't think he was great in it. I thought he was quite wooden. It makes me like him even less, what you've said about how he treated people on set. I do not think it was any great loss when he died. In fact, it probably gave the other Marines like John Leguizamo and people, it meant that the focus was on them instead of him. And no, I didn't think he really. In fact, you probably could have made this movie without him and just had somebody less known in that part, and it wouldn't really have made any difference. I don't know at the time if maybe having his name on the poster or whatever maybe would have drawn more people in, but I thought it was a really tight film. I thought they definitely needed to be more hydrated. That was one of the issues that I had with it. But I thought it was brilliant, and I had a really good couple of standout lines. I hope there's a good movie on the plane, like you spoke about, when he says, the guy in Washington says, call the president, it's an executive decision now. Stuff like that, just like snappy wee lines. And I love Morse code. I love when Morse code comes into a movie, because you think to yourself, how the hell are they going to let the military planes know that they're on board? Because obviously they think that they've just died when the other military plane came apart. And when they start doing the Morse code, I don't know why. I don't know if it's and I can't even be a nostalgia thing because I'm not old enough to remember when Morse code was a thing. But do you know what I mean? I just always think it's like going back to something that's not really they're not using technology. It's basic, and I don't know. It just, do you know what I mean?
I think it's just cool when people know it, and it's like Latin. People who know Latin, you think, oh, that's pretty cool if you know Latin or something like that.
Yeah.
Old school things that people don't know anymore.
Definitely.
I think it's really cool. So yeah, that's Executive Decision. Let's take a short break, get some popcorn, and we'll pop back in a bit.
Fab.
Okay, so welcome to the intermission. So this is the part of the episode where I ask my co-host a random question, a question they're not prepared for, and get their honest first answer. So Vanessa, are you ready for your intermission question?
I hope so.
Okay, so it's reasonably sort of in sync with the topic that we're discussing this episode. Your question is, if you could drive or ride in one vehicle from any movie, what would it be?
DeLorean. Yeah, because then you could travel in time.
Would you really want to?
Yeah, I think so. Would you not, if you could get a chance? I've seen enough time travel movies that I think I would know all the rules. Don't get out of the car, just go and have a look. I wouldn't go and do anything, because the minute you do something, then you alter things and all the rest of it. But yeah, I think I would go in the DeLorean.
Don't make anything past Terminator 2.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose if I thought about it more, I probably could think of something else, but I suppose the point of those questions is to go with your first instinct, and I think my first, I would go in the DeLorean, and I think I would go and visit... I don't know what I would go and visit, actually, but I suppose there's loads of things that I would like. I've always wondered what happened to the Mary Celeste, you know, the boat where, like, all the people disappeared. I remember me and my friend had to do it at school, in primary school. We had to write like a short story about what we thought happened, and me and my friend wrote this whole play about cannibals getting on board and eating everybody, and
then themselves.
my teacher wasn't very happy with that, so that probably shows you what kind of person I actually am. But I'd like to know what happened to the Mary Celeste, definitely. So I would maybe go and try and figure that out. Be cool to go and see some dinosaurs, maybe. I don't think I would just go back 30 years that they do in the movie. I mean, that's a bit shit. I think I would go back further than that. I'd like to go in the DeLorean with Doc and Einstein and go on some adventures, but not adventures where you're going to change anything that's going to alter the course of history.
Well, that's always the risk.
It is always the risk. I love time. Do you like time travel movies? I've got a thing. I've it's one of those tropes in movies that I really enjoy. Time travel.
It's baffling. It's baffling. I mean, mine's very much very simple. Really, it'd be the Tim Burton 1989 Batmobile.
That is the coolest Batmobile out of all the Batmobiles. Do you ever listen to Clash of the Titles, the podcast?
No.
It's Alex Zane and two other folk who are really good, but whose names totally escape me. And a bit like your podcast, but not quite the same. They pit movies against each other, but they're more like movies that have got more in common. So they did an episode on it was the Joker in Batman versus the Joker in The Dark Knight versus the Joker in Joker.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked a lot about how cool the DeLorean and the original Batman was, and I was thinking about it and I was like, that was much cooler than that weird army thing that was in... I mean, I love the Dark Knight films, but I don't like the Batmobile, and the original Batmobile is cool as fuck. Good choice.
Yeah, I've seen the DeLorean, or a copy of the DeLorean in real life, but I've not seen the Batmobile.
The DeLoreans were supposed to be complete shit cars, apparently. That was the joke, that they were really bad cars. But I love Back to the Future is one of my favourite films, and just the idea of being able to go and see, did cannibals actually kill everybody on board the Mary Celeste?
Have you ever seen that? I can't remember. I don't think it was a part of a show, but it was like a YouTube sort of cartoon about what happened if Marty slept with his mum and stuff. It's just absolutely mental.
I saw, was it the Family Guy? There was a Family Guy skit about it.
It might have been Family Guy, actually.
Yeah, and it was really funny. It'd be good to talk about Back to the Future at some point, actually, because I absolutely adore it, but it is so problematic now. I mean, it was problematic then, actually. I think people just skimmed over the problematic parts, but the potential incest, sexual assault, you've got... What's his name? George McFly, the peeping Tom. It's quite a few things going on with that film. It's still brilliant.
Fantastic. Okay, so that's we'll call that the end of the intermission, and let's head back to the main podcast. Okay, so that leaves us to start talking about your choice then, Vanessa. What did you go for?
I went for 1994's Speed.
Pop quiz, hotshot. There's a bomb on a bus. If it drops below 50, it blows up. What do you do?
The game began with the ultimate test.
Where's Jack? Where do you think?
Now,
Stay on or get off.
Get off.
This is much better.
he's the only solution.
Pop quiz. You have a hair trigger aimed at your head. What do?
Keanu Reeves.
What do you do?
Speed.
I love this film. And it's going to be really easy for me to talk about because I love it so much. But 1994 Speed, directed by Jan de Bont. And and this is his directorial debut, I think, although he produced a lot of other movies, such as The Haunting Lara Croft, the sequel to Lara Croft, I think. He did Speed 2. I think he directed Twister, which apparently there's a sequel coming out soon. A bit like Executive Decision, it's got quite a big cast, and there's quite a lot of people that you recognise, but I'll just go with the big ones. So you've got Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock are kind of the stars of this movie. Keanu Reeves plays Jack Traven, I think it is. He's obviously a massive star, and even at this point, I think he had done Bill and Ted, the two Bill and Ted movies.
Excellent!
Dangerous Liaisons, Point Break, which funnily enough I watched not long ago. I love Point Break. I watch it kind of periodically, and it was interesting watching it because he plays quite a similar character in that movie. I think at this point he'd done Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I love, even though he is not great in it, and his accent is a bit like Terence and Phillip from South Park. But
I know where the bastard sleeps.
he's just I still love it, and I still love him in it. He's done, I think, My Own Private Idaho at this point. So, I mean, obviously he's a bigger star now, and you've got all the John Wick stuff under his belt. But even at the time, he was a pretty big star. He's in the lead role.
I don't think you can. The thing is with Keanu Reeves, he's very likeable, but he's very wooden in everything.
He's less wooden in the Bill and Ted films. Do you not think in the Bill and Ted movies he maybe does like almost his best work? Because I don't think he is as wooden in those. But then when you see him in like this, Point Break, Dracula, he is very wooden. But I don't know, when I watch Bill and Ted, I'm like, I think that's probably... I don't know if it's just maybe that's what he's more naturally like in real life.
I think if you look at his best performance, I would say is The Matrix, the original Matrix. Because he is sort of, he's sort of disenchanted and disassociated with the world that he lives in.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. Whereas, anything where he needs to be sort of naturalistic, he sort of struggles with a little bit. I don't think he's a bad actor. I think he's just, his delivery is a little bit short, shall we say.
And yet, apparently, as one of the nicest blokes. He's got this reputation of being like one of the nicest blokes in Hollywood. I actually thought he was pretty good. Have you ever seen that? I think, right, I might need corrected. I think it's a Sam Raimi movie called The Gift. It's like a southern gothic kind of... Is it Sam Raimi, am I right?
I think so, yes, if I remember
And he's
right.
a villain in that. He's a total dick in it, and he's actually quite good at it.
Yeah.
It's a different role because you don't normally see him being the baddie, and I actually thought he was pretty good in that as the baddie. But like
I think if I remember
like
right,
him.
doesn't he end up being not as bad as you think, kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
It's made out to be that he's the sort of villain of the piece, but he isn't. If I remember right, it's a long time since I've seen it.
I think he is still bad. He's just not as bad as you think he is. But
right.
I thought he was really good in that. But like you, I don't think he's a great actor, but I still like him, and he's in a lot of... I mean, like, things like Point Break and Bram Stoker's Dracula and the Bill and Ted movies, they're, like, some of my favourite movies, so despite me not thinking he's a great actor, I still really, really enjoy him and everything that he's in. And then this is... I was going through the cast, and I was actually thinking, like, I think Keanu Reeves' name might come up first, but Sandra Bullock's obviously in this movie, but it's actually quite a while before she comes into it. I'd forgotten how long they started this, the stuff in the elevator shaft or whatever, I'd forgotten how long that went on, but Sandra Bullock, at this point, I think her biggest movie was Demolition Man.
Yeah.
Obviously since then she's been in tons, including Miss Congeniality, which I love. I remember a few years back I recorded Miss Congeniality 2 on our Sky Plus box, and my husband actually turned around to me and said, I lost a little bit of love for you when I saw that you had recorded Miss Congeniality.
Really? See, that, you know, I'm not. I will admit I'm not a big fan of, you know, quote unquote chick flicks, but the Miss Congeniality films are quite good. I quite like them.
I like them as well, and I think she's really good. I always like Sandra Bullock. I even liked her in stuff like The Net, which was quite an early movie. She's obviously, like Keanu Reeves, very easy on the eye. Like, she's just really, really like her. But the other person that I was thinking about, is he a bigger star in this than Sandra Bullock, is Dennis Hopper, obviously. He plays Howard Payne, who's the baddie.
Pop quiz, hotshot. Kara's holding a police hostage. He's got enough dynamite strapped to his chest to blow a building in half. Now what do?
I mean, Dennis Hopper doesn't really need an introduction. By this point, he'd done like Easy Rider, Apocalypse Now, True Romance, which I think we've touched on before, which is my favourite film. He's brilliant in that. Blue Velvet, where he plays a supremely creepy character, Frank, I think his character.
Fucking love Blue Velvet.
He's fucking terrifying in that. He's quite scary in this as well, actually. Super Mario, is he not in Super Mario that you did?
Fuck, Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's a low point.
Yeah.
I mean, he's considering he spends most of this film acting with himself. You know, he's not. There's a few bits where he's bouncing off Keanu Reeves on the phone and stuff like that, but a lot of his scenes are just him by himself. And yeah, how he manages to build that character just by talking to the television and to the news and stuff like that, it's just amazing.
He's brilliant. I mean, I think he's brilliant in everything, and I think he plays a really, really good baddie. He's really good at this kind of stuff. So those three are probably the kind of stars, but then you've got Jeff Daniels as... I don't know if he's Jack's partner. I think he's his partner, Cop Harry. I love Jeff Daniels. Like, Dumb and Dumber came out the same year. I think his character was Harry in that as well. Arachnophobia is another movie that I absolutely love. And it's weird because I hate spiders, but I love Arachnophobia, and I think Jeff Daniels is great in that.
But I think that's it. It's a good... Arachnophobia is a good example of playing on a fear that a lot of people have. Just basic. I mean, I'm not an arachnophobic. I wouldn't say that I am, but I'm not the biggest fan of spiders, and you know, it plays on that sort of base fear, and this film does. I think I sort of picked up, you know, the opening sort of set pieces is lifts, which a lot of people have fears about lifts, and lifts just, you know, drop into the floor and things like that. And I thought that was a very clever way to start this film, is playing on that fear of a lift just dropping to the floor, which was really good and really tense.
Well, I'm scared of everything, so I am scared of spiders. I'm also not a huge fan. I'm not terrified of lifts, but I'm not overly keen, especially really small lifts. I'm not really keen on being in lifts. But yeah, so Jeff Daniels.
And you're now scared of steak bakes as well.
Steak bakes I've added to the long list of things that I'm afraid of. The other kind of... now, there are a lot of bit parts, so I'm probably not going to mention them all, but the other character I want to mention is it Steven or Stevens? Alan Ruck, who best known probably for Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He was also in Twister from Jan de Bont as well. And I don't know if you've been watching Succession.
No.
Right, I've completely binged like 3 seasons of Succession, and I'm now watching the 4th season, which is amazing. I would highly recommend it. And Alan Ruck's in that, but I think he really provides the kind of comic relief in this. And
he doesn't look a day over Ferris Bueller as well. He just doesn't seem to age.
Well, even now, seeing Succession, his hair's grey, but see facially, he looks exactly the same. But he's really good at comedy, Alan Ruck, and I think he gets some amazing lines in this.
The last thing I've seen him in was the most recent thing I've seen him in was the Exorcist TV series.
I never watched that. Was it good?
Yes and no. It was good up until a point, and it's one of those things where you've got to watch it to see where that point is.
Right.
without spoiling it.
Right.
It's he plays this. He's the sort of father of this family that's affected by this possession, and he's. I don't know if he's had an accident, but he's got sort of memory problems, and
right.
I don't know if it's early Alzheimer's or something like that. But he's pretty good in it. It gets to a point and you just think, no, this is no.
I'll maybe give it a go. I know that David Gordon Green, is that his name, that did have the Halloween trilogy, is doing a new Exorcist movie at some point this year, so that'll be, I don't know if it'll be interesting or not, but I mean, I didn't list all the other, because there are quite a few characters like on the bus and stuff that you recognise, like Joe Morton that we spoke about in Executive Decision is obviously in this. There's a very small part of the bus driver of the original bus that explodes, John Capodice, I think his name is, who I recognised from Ace Ventura. He's like the kind of head of police in Ace Ventura.
Yes. Yeah.
He's in Jacob's Ladder. I think he plays a cop in Jacob's Ladder as well, and he's also in Gremlins 2. In fact, I think he might play a cop in Gremlins 2 as well. I think he's one of those guys that's kind of typecast a little bit. But there are loads of other actors in it, but you know there's so many that it would be difficult to list them all. Now I've tried to do a synopsis, right? But actually I think that there's a really basic synopsis for this movie. There's a bomb on a bus, and the bus needs to be kept above 50 miles an hour. I mean, you can imagine somebody going into like a Hollywood meeting and pitching this movie. It would be a fairly short pitch because it's so clever.
There's a bomb on a bus. Once the bus goes 50 miles an hour, the bomb is armed. If it drops below 50, it blows up.
But, as I said, when I actually watched this again, and I've seen it loads of times, but I think I watched it last week, I forgot it's quite a while before you actually get onto the bus. There's like a good 40 minutes or so, starting with that elevator scene, which is actually really, really effective. And as you say, it kind of plays on a lot of people's fears. It sets up the characters. It sets up Keanu Reeves and Jeff Daniels' characters. They're obviously like, you know, really close. And it sets up the baddie Howard Payne, so that you know he's got a bit of a vendetta at that point.
There's 2 points in that scene, the sort of elevator takeover scene, that really I couldn't figure out. One is Jack Travers, as they're going up each floor, he's shouting the floor number, even though it's very clearly marked on the wall.
Yep.
I just found that very pointless. And my God, Keanu Reeves is chewing gum like there's no tomorrow.
I'm pretty sure he does that in Point Break as well, actually. In fact, this character, I don't know when, I'd have to look up when Point Break came out. What's this? This is 1994.
92, I think.
Yeah, I think.
Or was it 90? It might be 1990.
Yeah, it was. I think it was before this, because I don't know if that's why he was cast, but he definitely plays a very similar character in Point Break. What's it they say?
Young, dumb, and full of cum.
It's that kind of young, hotshot, good-looking.
91.
91, right? Okay. So it's funny because I thought he was a very similar character in that. But I actually think when I rewatch, the elevator stuff is really interesting. It sets everything up really well. It is really scary. I mean, that bit where the woman refuses to come, you know, she's like the last person to get rescued out the lift. She's obviously terrified. And they grab her just as the lift kind of falls. I mean, it is really tense. There is a bit, though, with that elevator thing, before Jack and Harry turn up, they kind of come roaring in this car, and it jumps. It's it's LA, isn't it, that this movie's set in? It's LA. And it, like, jumps, because they're obviously going so fast, and then the car lands, and you think to yourself, there's no way at that speed, if the car jumped like that and then landed, it would still be in one piece. Like, the car would be fucked. It kind of adds to the kind of action theme of the movie. And then, obviously, you've got all that stuff at the start. Howard Payne is wanting, I think, 3 million or 3.7 million or something. And the plan's foiled. So then he obviously decides that he's going to put a bomb on a bus. He blows up the bus, the first bus, and then you get this really good set piece of Keanu Reeves effectively stealing a car. Now, is that actually allowed? Are you allowed, as a police officer in America or here in the UK, to stop a car and say to somebody, I'm the police, I need your car? Because this poor guy is just driving along in what I'm assuming is quite a prized possession. You know, I don't know what kind of car it is, but, you know, he's like soft top kind of sports car.
Jaguar.
Is that what it is? A Jaguar? Like, I drive a fucking Fiesta, right? I would be absolutely raging if somebody rocked up and was like, I am the police, you need to move over and let me wreck your car. You know, you've got insurance. But, I mean, what would your insurance even say to that? I mean, for a start, they would probably say, like, you're obviously crazy. That never happened. Like, you're just making this story up.
I just like how he says, there's this line about, it's not stolen or something like that, because obviously it's a black guy and he's like, you know, I'm sick of this, you know, it's not stolen.
Poor guy, he's probably getting pulled over left, right and centre.
Well, he actually, I don't know if you've seen Speed 2, but he's actually the same, he's the only character other than Sandra Bullock's that's in the second film.
I haven't seen it, however, the night it showed on ITV4, the following night, Speed 2 showed, and I just set up Speed to record, but seeing some of these channels, when you record films, they have a break halfway through and do like a news, like a 5-minute news thing, so you have to press record series to get both parts of the movie, but because I did that, it's also recorded Speed 2 that was on the following night, so I definitely will watch Speed at some point soon because it's on my Skybox. I know that one's set on a boat, so it's quite different.
I've got a bit of a soft spot for Speed 2 because it was one of the first films I went to see, not on my own, but without a parent or a sibling.
Ah, right, okay.
I think it gets a bad rap. It's not Speed 2, it's not a great sequel, but I think had it been not a sequel, it would have been a better film. But that's by the by. It's I'll definitely watch it because, like I said, it's on my. Although I've got quite a few movies on my Skybox, but I definitely will get round to watching it. But yeah, once Jack commandeers this poor guy's Jaguar, he manages to eventually pull up beside the bus, pulls the poor guy's door off to enable himself to get on the bus. Obviously, everybody at this point on the bus is like, "What the fuck is going on? Who is this lunatic?" And then once he gets on the bus, he explains that. Now, this confused me a wee bit. Is it when the bus goes below 50 that the bomb is activated, and then you have to stay above 50 or it'll detonate? When it first goes above 50, it's activated.
And at that point, you have to keep it above 50 to stop it detonating.
And if it drops below 50, yeah.
Right.
I found it a bit strange that, like, because there's obviously this point when he gets on the bus and there's this guy who thinks that he's there to arrest him.
Yep.
And obviously it ends up that he shoots the bus driver.
The driver, yep.
But it's like, why would you think that this cop is in the middle of the freeway jumping on this bus just to arrest you? There's a lot of stretches in this film. I think that's probably the point I'm trying to make.
I think what they were needing to do was get rid of the bus driver so that Sandra Bullock... But I think there's probably better ways you could have done that. You could have had the bus driver take some kind of panic attack or heart attack because of what's happening. I agree. Like, this guy's obviously got a criminal record, or he's obviously worried about the police for whatever reason. But as you say, would he really... Unless he was like a terrorist or something, they wouldn't go to this kind of lengths to get him. But I think it was just a plot device. As you say, there are a few bits that you have to kind of stretch your imagination a bit. But to me, it's just they need Sandra Bullock, who apparently learned to drive a bus for this movie. They need to get her, and obviously she's just a college student, I think, who happens to be on the bus, ironically, because she's lost her driving licence for speeding, and they need to get her in the driving seat of the bus. I heard that apparently originally, when this idea was first pitched, the bus had to stay above 20 miles an hour because it just had to stay fast enough that a person couldn't catch it. But I think, you know, the producers and stuff were like, that is a totally shit movie. Like 20 miles an hour is really quite slow. 50, I think, is probably quite a good, because if you had like it being like 70 or 80, I think that would have, you know, they would have crashed right back at the start. Whereas I suppose 50 is the kind of speed that if you're in a lot of traffic. One of the things that struck me about this, actually, I don't know if it's because of COVID, I've become quite a nervous driver. I used to be quite a confident driver, and I've become quite nervous about driving on the motorway. So see the scenes where he was trying to get on the bus and then they're trying to get the bus off the freeway and stuff.
I'm a cop! LAPD! There's a bomb on your bus! There's a bomb on your bus! There's a... What? Fuck! There's a bomb on your bus! Watch the road!
I actually found them, like I said, add to the long list of things that I find frightening. But this idea of these multi-lane freeways with, and it's obviously kind of like rush hour, so there's tons of traffic. So, you know, I think that works really well, actually, because there's so much, you know, if it had happened at like 10 o'clock at night, there's not really going to be any stakes. There's probably not going to be a lot of traffic about. But because there's all this traffic about, it just makes it that much more tense, I suppose. But once the bus driver's shot, Sandra Bullock ends up taking over driving the bus, and then in my mind you've got then the best part of the movie. To me, the best part of the movie is from when Jack gets on the bus to when they eventually get off the bus, and then there's a bit that I suppose we'll talk about at the end that I don't think works quite as well. I think the best part is the time that they're on the bus, because that's that kind of single setting. You know, how are they going to do this? They're going to have to get through this traffic, and then they've got the added, they've got all the police helicopters, but not just the police, they've got the news helicopters, so they think, you know, Howard Payne's watching what they're doing. Obviously at that point they don't know that he's got a camera on board, and so you've got that to contend with. And I don't know about you, but to me, the whole, it must be about an hour or so, or the best part of an hour on the bus is probably the best part. And if you speak to people about this movie, I think that's the bit that they remember, not necessarily the elevator sequence at the start, although that's really good, or the bit at the end, which I think is probably less good, but the actual just whole scene on the bus, I think, is where the strength of this movie is.
Yeah, well, that's it. And, you know, I think it's very similar to Executive Decision in terms of, you know, you think action movie, you think, you know, guns and shooting and violence and everything else. And in the same way that Executive Decision isn't like that, this film is very much about the tension. It's very much about the pace and the speed, quote unquote speed, of what's happening and what they've got to react to, rather than just the pure action and the violence and the interactions. I suppose it's very much about the tension rather than the action, almost.
A bit like Executive Decision as well. Like, you do watch it thinking, what would I do if I was on that bus? You know, how would I react to that? And everybody on the bus reacts really differently. You've got people that are obviously a bit stronger who help, and then you've got like the guy that shoots the bus driver, Alan Ruck. You've got a woman who tries to get off and ends up being killed because she's so scared. So I think the kind of supporting cast on the bus are all really believable because they all react to the situation really differently, which I think would happen in a situation like that. And I think one of the bits on the bus that I think is probably one of the tensest bits is when Annie, isn't Sandra Bullock's character, is driving, and the woman with the pram crosses the road, and obviously she can't slow down. She ends up hitting the pram. It ends up like the pram's full of cans. That's been done since then, similar things, because I've definitely seen that kind of thing in other movies. But obviously she thinks she's hit a baby. It's not a baby, it's just a bunch of cans. I think in America, could be wrong, but I think if you collect cans you can get like money back from, they've got some kind of like scheme where you can basically take your cans back and get money. So
it was in the 90s, I remember I can't remember if it was if you put a magnet to them and they stuck, you could get something for them or something like that.
Right. So I thought that bit was like particularly good. Obviously, then you've got Joe Morton's character in the helicopter speaking to Jack, trying to get them off the highway, which they do eventually manage. They get them on initially to a freeway that's still getting built. And then, of course, part of that's missing. So then you've got that awesome scene where the bus has to jump. I think it's 50 feet. Again, I think you have to suspend your disbelief, because I think if that bus jumped that and landed, it would be in bits at that point. But it, adds to the tension. And then eventually they manage to get the bus into LA Airport. For some reason, they don't move all the planes out the airport. Like, the planes are still there, and then she's kind of spinning about the airport. At that point, you think that Howard Payne, the only way he knows what's going on is because of the press helicopters that are following the bus. And then you've got what I quite liked, the bit where, he keeps calling Annie Wildcat, and you don't really know why, and then eventually Jack twigs that that's the name of the football team for Arizona University or whatever that she, the uni that she goes to, and he realises that he's watching the camera on board. So the way that they trick him is by filming everybody on the board just basically doing nothing, and then sending that on whatever signal he's watching, so that they can start getting people off the bus. Obviously that doesn't work quite as they intended, because somebody, touches their nose or something, and then he realises
it's the bag, and the bag
is it the bag
disappears. It's sort of the start and end of the clip sort of thing. The bag disappears in the lady's lap.
That's it. So it's like almost like a continuity error kind of thing. But before that, just taking a step back a wee bit, he has to go under the bus and find out what kind of bomb is on board. Very executive decision. He's lying under the bus, he's looking at the bomb, he's relaying things back to Alan Ruck, who I think is on the phone to Harry, and you get a good bit where I think Jack's saying stuff, Alan Ruck's saying it to Harry, and I think Jack says,
"Fuck me." Oh, darn.
It's really good.
Yeah.
And then you've got Harry, who's obviously some kind of bomb disposal expert, trying to figure out what kind of bomb it is. There's a gold watch attached to the bomb, and Harry realises that Howard Payne is a retired cop who I think possibly was retired on disability and got a cheap gold watch. That was mentioned a couple of times earlier on. And then later on, there's another scene where I'm trying to defuse the bomb, and I think the thing that he's on, the board, kind of ends up getting stuck. There's debris lying, which is quite a tense bit. There's 2 or 3 different scenes kind of with this board under the bus that I think work really well. They get everybody off the bus. Eventually, Alan Ruck, I think, is the last one to get off, and he ends up kind of falling. So it's only Annie and Jack that are left on the bus, and then they manage to kind of rig up the accelerator and the steering wheel to give them enough time to get off. And then there's this brilliant scene when they get off, and the bus crashes into a plane. I'm not sure why that plane was there, because I'm sure they had enough time to say we need to clear this airport, but I'm assuming it was an empty plane. I think it was getting pulled. It wasn't, being driven by anybody. It was being pulled along. And at that point, and I suppose this is where, if I'm being really critical of this movie, I think the tension dips a wee bit, because I should also mention, as well, that during all of this, Harry and a team of cops go to Howard Payne's house, and it's rigged, and it ends up killing Harry and the other cops.
It's such a brilliant piece of acting when the realisation on Harry's face when he knows that it's a setup and there's a bomb there, and it's just, a 2-second look on Harry's face that he knows it's a setup and he's gonna die, basically. is brilliant.
He's really good, actually. I mean, I like Jeff Daniels anyway, but I think he is particularly good in this film. And as you say, that look in his face. Do you know they actually blew somebody's house up for that? Like, they paid to blow somebody's house up for that scene. So that obviously increases the stakes because Jack is more pissed that his friends died. So that makes him even more kind of wanting to win in the situation. But when Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves finally get off the bus on the board, I know you can end the movie at that point because Howard Payne's still alive, but you've then got this kind of 20, 30 minutes, I don't know how long it is at the end, where he doesn't know, or they think he doesn't know that everybody's got off the bus. He obviously does work it out. So they have this dead drop for the ransom money underneath a bin. And then, because he's worked out what's happening, he dresses up as a cop, he takes Sandra Bullock hostage, and they end up in an underground train. I felt it just, at that point, it doesn't lose me, but the tension there just doesn't seem quite as high as it was when they were on the bus. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, there's the obvious scene where once he gets down into the subway and he's, saying, turn around and all that sort of thing, and it's quite clearly Sandra Bullock and not Dennis Hopper.
Yep.
It's got to have that final climax of Jack versus Howard kind of thing. So it does have that. You've got to take that leap at that point, which I think is relatively believable because obviously he said, I want the money here at this time, at this point, at this specific location, but they're acting as if, he's not got a backup plan as well. The biggest problem I find is that why would you take Annie
to that location? That's
the biggest leap, I think, really.
Well, I mean, surely she should be, in the hospital or whatever, because, I mean, she is hurt physically. Not severely, but, I mean, she has been hurt when they escaped from the bus. But obviously, on top of that, and this is maybe something that would be picked up more now maybe than in the mid-90s, but surely she has got some form of, PTSD or something. Something like that happens to you. I don't think they would just be on your way. Off you go kind of thing. I think you would be kept and they would say, we'll get you a psychiatrist or we'll offer you some form of therapy or something. So, and I don't know if that's because it's mid-90s, it's maybe...
There's this whole line of, relationships that start in extreme circumstances don't work out, which comes into play in Speed 2 as well. Well, that's right. You wouldn't expect, a police officer in that situation to then take that person to the next part of the operation, I suppose.
No, I think that is quite unbelievable. I mean, I know why they've got it, because it increases the stakes of that last bit. I just think it loses me a wee bit towards the end, because it's so tense on the bus. I think there's a way that you could have done that end bit. And I think the fact that they then get onto a train, so you've had all this stuff on a bus, and it's rather than just have some kind of Mexican standoff or whatever between Jack and Howard, they put them on a train, and it's right, you've already done this. You're now having another vehicle that's kind of running away, and it just seems a little bit... Having said that, when he does finally kill Howard and you get that line to Annie about, oh, where's Payne? He lost his head. That's pretty good. And the decapitation scene is gorier than what I remember as well. I was like, oh, this is actually quite a gory bit. And being a horror fan, I love stuff like that. But
you know what? The better line, I think, is...
Yeah? Well, I'm taller.
There's quite a good few lines in this, actually. And when I say that the end bit loses me a wee bit, I don't mean that as a massive criticism, because overall I still really, really enjoy this film and I enjoy that end bit. I just think the best part of the movie is on the bus. And I think if you ask people about Speed, that's what they remember. They don't remember what happened before or after the bus. They just remember everything that happened, him going under and checking the bomb, having to keep it above 50 mile an hour, jumping that 50 foot. You know, they're all the bits that folk remember.
Mm-hmm.
But, and then obviously it's a happy ending. They end up kissing, I'm assuming. Well, maybe not, because Keanu Reeves isn't in Speed 2. But, you know, you're supposed to think that they have this, you know, wonderful life together. And apparently, I read, and I don't know if this is true, but they started dating after they were in this movie together. And I think they do have quite good chemistry, so that wouldn't actually surprise me if they did. But I don't think it was long, you know, I don't think it went on for a long period of time, but apparently they did date for a while.
Well, according to some news reports, he's the biggest bigamist in the world, because apparently he officially got married to Winona Ryder on set of Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Really?
The scene where the sort of Orthodox wedding was apparently genuine.
Oh wow! So that when they're in like Transylvania or Romania or whatever, and his hairs have turned white, and they oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, in this apparently they end up together, so which is quite nice actually, and I think that is one of the aspects. I know that we've spoken about Keanu Reeves not being the best actor in the world, but you do believe that the two of them click.
This film suits his acting style, I think.
Yeah.
There's a couple of points where you think, oh God, but the character and the script, I suppose, really sort of suits his acting abilities in a way.
Yeah, I think because it's the same with Point Break. It's quite a similar role, and I think that he just, as you say, this kind of suits him. It's not too deep in any way. He just has to kind of do what it says on the tin kind of thing, and I think that does suit him. I think Sandra Bullock's a better actor than him though, and I think that comes across when you see the two of them together. It definitely comes across when you see Keanu Reeves and Howard Payne, Dennis Hopper together. I mean, he is obviously a great actor, and I think that's the thing even with Jeff Daniels actually. When you see the two of them, I think you believe Jeff Daniels. So I think the thing with Keanu Reeves is that he is good, even though he's a bit wooden, but it highlights it. It's, you know, like I said, I watched Point Break recently. When you see him with like Patrick Swayze, for instance, Patrick Swayze is much better in that role than what Keanu Reeves is. I can't remember his name in Point Break, but it's just... It shows up, I think, when he's with other people that obviously are better at acting. But having said all of that, I really like him in this movie. I think he's quite well cast to a certain extent. And, I think it's just a great movie. It's one of those movies I could kind of put on in any mood and just watch or have on in the background. You know what I mean? Like one of those films that you can just kind of stick on. Don't have to pay too much attention to it. And it is actually quite funny. Like I said, Alan Ruck actually gets... quite a few good lines. Like when they get to the airport, he says, "Oh, we're at the airport. I've already seen the airport," because he's obviously a tourist. You know, he gets to say a few kind of funny things. Like he says to one of the other passengers something like, "Oh, it's okay if you need to. You go right ahead and vomit." I quite like Alan Ruck's kind of. He brings a wee bit of humour to it, but I think it's just a classic mid-90s movie, basically.
I think you get a lot of that from Dennis Hopper as well, I think, to be fair, you know, because he is acting against himself, you know, the line that always comes to my head when somebody says speed, you know, there's the obvious ones of, you know, if it goes over 50 miles an hour, it's going to harm, and if it goes below, it's going to blow up kind of thing. But Dennis Hopper, I think, has the one that always comes to mind when somebody mentions speed is... where the newscaster said, "Oh, you know, they're held at the whim of a madman." And he's like, "No,
the whim of a madman." I like that.
You know, and then what is it? Later on, he says, "Poor people are crazy. I'm eccentric."
He is really good. He drinks an awful lot of Coke. Every time you see him, he's got like another bottle, and it's like the glass, like the good Coke, like glass bottle. I don't know if you drink Coke, but like I always think I drink Diet Coke. It's always better out of a glass bottle than it is out of anything else. But he's constantly drinking like these bottles of Coke. So I don't. But he is quite like hyped up all the time. Like he feels quite.
He's almost this believable character that he's been fucked over in his professional career as a policeman, and just thrown to the side and everything, and he wants what's rightfully his, whether it's pension, just getting a shitty gold watch because he's been cast to one side because of disability or whatever. It's an extreme reaction, but it's almost believable in the same respect.
I think so, and I think because he's so good, you do believe him. You believe he's got this vendetta, and he feels like he's been mistreated. But he is the standout performance, I think, of the whole film. I think anybody would say that. But he's also probably the most experienced, and it's Dennis Hopper. Like, what else can you say, really? But it makes it a better film for having him in it, because you could have cast somebody that played that role a little bit more, I don't know, just your kind of typical baddie, and it just probably wouldn't have been quite as exciting. And but no, I really enjoy this movie. I think it's, if I'm being, like I said, really critical, the end bit I think could have been a wee bit shorter. I think it could have ended 10 minutes or so maybe before it did, and it might have just been a slightly tighter movie. But I will, like I said, it's the type of film that I will always just, if I see it's on TV or whatever, I would easily just sit and watch it on like a Saturday night or something. After, coming in from being in the pub and you're a wee bit bleary eyed and you just want to put something on that you're not having to pay too much attention to, kind of thing. But no, I think it's brilliant.
I mean, my final thought, the one thing I'd like to throw in is the way that Sandra Bullock says gum in this film. There's gum on my seat.
Gum.
That's my final thought on this film.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think, to sort of wrap up and compare the two films, from my perspective, I would say I think Executive Decision is definitely a more taut film. It's the script, the story, everything is pretty pristine and makes sense, and it flows beginning to end. Where Speed excels is in those action set pieces, and the tension is really strong. It's really sort of taut action set pieces, whereas the story's maybe a lot less believable.
Yeah, I would agree to a certain extent. I mean, I'm always going to prefer Speed because I've got a certain amount of nostalgia, maybe like you have with this Executive Decision. I obviously only watched Executive Decision for the first time last night, and like I said, I definitely would watch it again. But Speed is something that I've loved since the first time I saw it, which probably was when it came out in 1994. So I probably saw it not long after it came out, maybe a year or two. And I think I'll always prefer it just because that kind of nostalgia, and because I think some of the action set pieces are so good. But I think looking at it on the whole and looking at Executive Decision, I think you're right. I think Executive Decision overall is tauter. I think there are parts of Speed, especially towards the end, that probably could be dropped. And as you say, yeah, you do have to suspend your disbelief a little bit, because there's a couple of decisions made in Speed that you think to yourself, why are they doing that? Why is that happening? Like I said, I mean, obviously you've pointed out some of the obvious ones, like why would they take Sandra Bullock to the drop-off for the money? But I still can't understand why, if they knew the bus was going out the airport, they would have a plane that, you would just clear a massive space for it. Like, there's some aspects of it I just don't really get.
I think that the whole believability that the bus would tip over 50 kilometers an hour and then drop below it is a little bit unbelievable as well, because you would imagine that, I mean, my perspective as somebody who's never been to LA is that there would still be traffic. So
Yeah.
if it goes over 50, it's probably very quickly going to drop below 50.
Yeah.
So I think there is that, the whole sort of plan and the plot of Howard Payne is more unbelievable than the Najee Hassan plan of, crashing a plane in America to create a big atomic bomb, basically. Or dirty man's atomic bomb, as they say in the film.
You could even believe that if Howard Payne put a bomb on a plane, that wouldn't be that unbelievable.
Yeah.
You could believe that, but as you say, with the bus, with the kind of 50 miles an hour thing, does it really make a lot of sense if you think about it? Probably not. But as I said, I probably just prefer it because of the nostalgia. And I really enjoyed watching both films, actually, and they have got quite a lot in common. Obviously, the obvious being that they're kind of based on a mode of transport, but there's other things they have in common
and Joe
as well.
Morton.
Yeah, and Joe Morton, who I really enjoyed in both, actually. But I think he's great in Terminator too as well. He's a really good actor. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed watching both of them, and I'm pleased to have seen Executive Decision. So thank you for
Good.
suggesting that one, so that I got to actually see it. And it's for anybody that wants to see it that hasn't seen it. It's on Amazon Prime, so it's like £3.50 or whatever. But it's definitely it's well worth it.
Yeah,
definitely well worth it.
Yeah, I think it did the rounds quite recently on Netflix, so it might pop up on
okay.
on there in the near future. You never know.
Yeah.
That about sort of wraps us up for this episode. Thank you very much once again for joining me, Vanessa.
Thanks very much. I enjoyed that.
Is there anything that you'd like to sort of plug, or any way that people can get in contact with you or follow you on social media?
I don't think anything to plug as such, but I am on Letterboxd, Instagram and Facebook as Vanessa Cordner, maybe Vanessa L. Cordner on Facebook. So if anybody wants to get in touch or follow me on Letterboxd, then go right ahead. But yeah, thanks.
Okay, so it just leaves me to say goodbye, and for Vanessa to say...
Man sure has a hard-on for this boss.